Our next measure of central tendency is the mid-range. The mid-range is found by adding the lowest and the highest data values and then dividing the sum by 2. Algebraically, we call that the mid-range equal the lowest data value plus the highest data value divided by 2. So this is not nearly as robust as the mean because really only we're using 2 values to average them instead of all of the values. So the lowest value here is 6, the highest value is 10, so I simply take 6 plus 10 divided by 2, 16 divided by 2 is 8. So the mid-range is 8. And that's how you find the mid-range. Now I'm going to ask you to do every single measure of central tendency for this new set of data. We have 5 data points, 28, 42, 40, 25, and 35. The first thing I'm going to do is order them because some of them might be helpful to have them in order. So 25 is first, then 28, then we have 35, then 40, and 42. And I'm going to also number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that might be helpful at some of them too. So for the mean, when I find the mean, I'm going to add them all up and divide by the total number there is. So we have 25 plus 28 plus 35 plus 40 plus 42 divided by 5 because there's 5 data points. So I'm going to go to my calculator. 25 plus 28 plus 35 plus 40 plus 42. That gets me 170. Then I take that 170 and divide it by 5, and that's 34. So the mean is 34, or another way we can say that is x bar is 34. Next, we're going to do the median. The median is the middlemost number. So right now, I can see that the middlemost number is the third number out of 5. Another way to find that is I could take 5 plus 1 divided by 2. So n plus 1 over 2, that's 6 over 2. That's the third data value. So 35 is my median. The mode is the most frequent. Which one of these 5 data items appears most frequently? Well, none of them appear more than once, so there is no mode. And lastly, the mid-range. The mid-range, I'm going to take the highest value and the lowest value and add them up divided by 2. Very similar to the mean, except you're only using the top and the bottom. So 25 plus 42 divided by 2. In my calculator, I do 25 plus 42, and that gets me 67, and 67 divided by 2 is going to be 33.5. So 33.5 is my mid-range. All of these things measure the average or a measure of central tendency, but they aren't all the same. But 34, 35, and 33.5 are similar values. They're all measuring central tendency. So now we have the central tendency for the percentages of the adults in 10 countries who agree with that the inventiveness is inherited. So in my little table here it says, are inventors born or made? And people have different opinions in different cultures and different countries. So we want to know about people who believe that it's inherited. So in China, because we're looking at inherited, which is the lighter value, there's 8% of people that think inventiveness is inherited, and then we're going to keep going and pick all of the light values: 16, 16, 20, 22, 23, 23, 23, 25, and 25. So now I'm going to get the mean by adding them all up and dividing by the total number of data items I have. So 8 plus 16 plus 16 plus 20 plus 22 plus 23 3 times, plus 25 plus 25, all divided by, and I'm not sure how many data items I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It looks like I have 10 data items, so I'm going to divide all this by 10. So I'm going to add these up. Just be very careful when you're typing this in, since there is so many data items. Mistyping one thing could really mess you up. So I got 201 divided by 10, and that's going to get me 20.1. So my mean is 20.1. Another way of saying that is x bar is 20.1. The median is going to be the middlemost number. To find out which data value item that is, I can take n plus 1 divided by 2. So that's 11 divided by 2, so that's 5.5, which is, it means it's going to be between the 5th and 6th data item is the middlemost numbers. Or I could have canceled out the first and the last, keep doing that first and the last until I got to the middlemost, and then I could have figured out that the 5th and the 6th data item were the middlemost. Now to get the median, I have to take those two middlemost numbers, add them up and divide by 2. So 22 plus 23 is 45, and 45 divided by 2 is 22.5. So your median is 22.5. The mode is the most frequent. Which one of these numbers came up the most? Well, it looks like 23 came up 3 times. So 23 is our mode. There is no other data value item that came up more frequently. And then the last one, the mid-range. The mid-range takes the least and the most and added them up, divide by 2, like what you would consider a normal average. So you take 8 plus 25, that's 33, and divide it by 2. And that gets you 16.5. So of these central tendencies, we have 21.1, 22.5, 23, and 16.5. 16.5 looks awfully low, and the mid-range is probably one of the least reliable of these 4 central tendencies because it really only uses 2 data value items. Everything else could be spread out and it could be skewed a little bit. Clearly there's a lot more data items up in the low 20s, near between 23 and 25, and just using the first and the last data value item for the mid-range doesn't really take in consideration the middle value items.